5 with Viewpoint here. Our guest this morning, Mr. Thomas Komnick, retired CEO of B&B Milling. Turned that over down to Mrs. Komnick, and she's now the CEO and tells him which to do and where to do it. And not retired counselor, Honorable Darrell Klink, former Indianite, and we've been happy to tickle to death that he joined the Lincoln scene eons ago. Darrell served his community very capably as a state's attorney a long time ago, and that was a good experience for the Logan County. Let's get back now to the honor flight. The purpose of this morning is to let people out there in Etherland know exactly what the honor flight means and how it came about. And if there is anybody out there who wants some more information, all they have to do is call old man Gossett at 732-7542. I have all the information about that, and we can put you in touch. If you know a veteran who should be on that flight, be sure and let us know. 648-5510 in case anybody had any questions they want to answer this morning on the air. I was telling Darrell and Tom off air that I had realized that we had 3 so-called chapters here in Illinois of flights that go out to St. Louis, Springfield, and Chicago. And in looking at on the internet, I find we have one out of Effingham, one out of Quincy, Chicago, of course, Northern Illinois, Fox Grove, the Quad Cities, and finally Springfield. That's pretty remarkable. So there's great coverage in this area for folks who might want to take advantage of it. And I thought it was unique that a local guy here went all the way to Wisconsin to get on that. And kudos to his family for making sure that took place up there. They did a great job there, Tammy, Brian. Great job. And by the way, they will be able to... this program is going to be streamed, WLCN online, and you can find this program for the next week, sometime late this afternoon or early evening. It will go all the way from Burtonview to Birkbeck, and you'll be able to follow it over there. Or if you've got somebody over there in Karachi, India, or Reykjavik, Iceland, they can look that up there over there just as well. Mr. Komnick, if you had to sum up your experience in a couple of words, how would you do that?
Well, that's hard to do in 2 words. You know.
Truly.
Could I have 3?
Yes, you may have whatever you need, Tom.
Very darn nice.
Yeah.
No, it's, for me, you know, it's something that has never happened in my lifetime, and of course never will again. But I, of course, flew out of Springfield on May the 10th.
Mm-hmm.
And my son was my caretaker, Lee.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lot of things, you know, that impressed me. I'd been to Washington a couple of times,
mm-hmm.
but not for many years. I think the last time I'd been there was 1956.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of change since I've been there. The thing that impressed me most, and I was impressed by most everything, but the thing that impressed me most was the cemetery, the Arlington National Cemetery. To me, I don't know, it was almost emotional to think of all the patriots that were buried there, and to know something about the history. In fact, I looked up on internet to get some more specifics, and have you got time to listen to that?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, please do, Tom.
Well, it's called the Arlington National Cemetery at Arlington, Virginia, which is right across the Potomac from Washington, D.C. And of course, most of you people have known there, and I'm sure many of you have been there. And I'd been there once before, but it's so beautifully kept. It's amazing. It's small hills, and it's just beautiful. I can't understand how anything could be kept that perfectly with all those graves there. And there's 300,000 people that are buried there, and the burials are about 6,400 per year. And this came about. Arlington House was there before the Arlington estate, but in 1802, George Washington Parke Custis, the adopted grandson, of George Washington, bought it and gave it as a memorial to George Washington. Now, Custis's daughter, Mary Ann Randolph, inherited the estate, which consisted of a new house and 200 acres. She married Robert E. Lee, and it was their home until the U.S. government confiscated it in 1864. Naturally, Lee was the Confederate Army with the Confederate Army during the Civil War, and of course, there's no mention made of his wife's whereabouts during that time. 3,800 freed slaves were the first persons to be buried there, and in 1883, the government purchased the property for $150,000. Now, just not everyone can be buried there. They must. There's quite a few qualifications, many of which I don't know. But you have to, and not everyone there is an ex-soldier. We have only 2 ex-presidents buried there, who were Taft and Kennedy. Now, there's other Medal of Honor winners, for instance, can be there. There are many admirals and generals and high-ranking officers buried there, and their families in some cases. But I happened to come across the grave of Audie Murphy, and those who can remember some years back, he was the most decorated soldier in World War II, and he was a very young man, and he was a Medal of Honor winner among many other awards, and he became a movie actor, and he was born dirt poor to his widow, and his mother was widowed, and they lived in poverty somewhere in Texas, But I'd always wondered about him, and I never knew he was buried there, and came upon his grave, just a common grave. Now, there's some most of the graves are just very simple crosses, but some of them aren't, and I don't know. I didn't look at the other tombstones, and they had tombstones which some would be like what we have here in this country, in our regular cemeteries. But it's very, very impressive. The Tomb of the Unknown Soldier was there, or soldiers, and incidentally, there's from the Civil War on, there's a unknown buried there, and the last one that was buried there was from the Vietnam War, and the body was exhumed in 1998, and you have DNA testing today, and they used it, and they revealed him to be First Lieutenant Michael Joseph Blassie, who was shot down in Vietnam in 1972. His family had him reburied in St. Louis, and so now that Vietnam crypt will remain empty. But
that's interesting.
Just to think of all the patriots, and it's a real. You get a real feeling when you walk through there. I mean, you just.
Yeah, you truly do. Each and every one of us had different experiences, and Darrell, I'd like to ask you, of the memorials we saw, is there one that stood out over others?
Well, they're all great.
Each and every one of them in their own setting are magnificent, their own aesthetics and all.
But the one, of course, that we went to see was World War II.
Yes.
And that is absolutely magnificent. And as we came to go to it, one of the quaint things that happened on this trip, but it was rainy. I can tell you, because the plane was held up, for a while. But you could hardly notice it because the system was such that you get off and on the bus. They have umbrellas, everybody's taking care of you.
They've got it organized.
Oh, it's organized. And as we approached this memorial, the weather got good. During the time we were at the World War II memorial, it was great. And there was a 4-star admiral greeting everybody and talking to everybody. It was just amazing the way they had things set up, and he was so kind. I think his name was Binkink. And he was a young man, and his aide was there, but he was kneeling down. There's a lot of veterans that were in the wheelchairs, and he was talking and kneeling down and talking to all of them. Quite a guy.
A quick side issue, politician was mentioned a while ago, gentlemen. I was talking to Senator Chuck Grassley from Iowa, of course, and he thought I was from Iowa, and he found out I was not from Iowa. And he turned his head and says, "Where the hell are these guys from Iowa?" And he left me like I had a bubonic plague. It was a funny experience to me.
Of course, I was one of the few people from Illinois there, and we got to be. First, it was a joke, and it got to be a matter of conversation, and it was just fun. There was a Legion of Honor man on the same flight.
I was particularly interested, of course, in the Air Force Memorial, which is pretty magnificent. But the one that stood out to me was the Korean Memorial. You walk around that corner and you see these about 7 foot high figures. They're all got their ponchos on, and you can see them. You just know they're out patrolling in the rain, and it's just an eerie monument. It's just absolutely magnificent. That stood out to me because of as I said, each and every one of them are so wonderful in their own setting. But when to come around that corner, and it just happened, it was a light mist. We had great weather, but there was a light mist falling, and you could envision these guys out in the jungle on patrol. And I thought that was
that was my favorite too, Bill.
Yeah.
It wasn't the biggest.
No, but it certainly
memorial.
Was. By the way,
it was. I don't know. It just captured your attention.
Yeah. Mr. Radio Man, the B-17 was down in Springfield last weekend. I made a trip down there, and I climbed up there. I sat in that old radio seat, and I thought of you as I sat down there, because I knew that you also had served on the 17 and as a radio operator. Could you remember any code yet?
Oh, yeah. I think I can remember most of it. Sometimes when I'm lying awake at night, having not worked too hard that day.
Which is frequent.
Now, wait a minute. I've been talking to Lee, haven't I? Well, anyway, I sometimes go through it. And
do you really?
Yeah. And do you remember your service number, your
you betcha.
ID number?
Yeah. Sure do.
Oh, yeah, I do. 1618740.
16118783, and it's as simple as that. Yeah.
And 66 years later, I still remember it. I don't know. I don't remember much else.
Sometimes I can't find my way home, but I can remember that. Darrell, how did it happen that your family got on the line and got you, which was really neat? I've been pushing him to get going here, and the next thing you know, they've got him signed up out in Wisconsin. I didn't know you could do that, and I thought that was great.
Well, it was all surprised me.
Yeah.
I signed up here, And as a matter of fact, when I first heard from him, I thought I was hearing from Illinois, and we had this conversation. I was asking, do you remember you stopped the office? And they did this themselves. They thought of something to do, and that's the way they did it. They arranged it all.
Tom, I think our chapter here in Central Illinois must be a little bit unique. This Ray Weedle chairs this thing here, and he's got a great committee, and this thing is organized to a fine team.
I don't understand how they do that, and it's something he does. I presume he doesn't get paid. His expenses might be taken care of, but I don't think he just does this, and he must spend an enormous amount of time coordinating all these flights. And he has quite a few people helping him,
Oh, he's
too.
got a dedicated committee that
But
works
they
with him.
just, yeah, it's
amazing.
it really is.
You
It's
know,
really is.
right, speaking in terms of the cost of this, cost about $50,000 to send these planes out there.
Yes.
And this all, not a nickel, not one nickel to a veteran. You can't spend any money with them if you're a World War II or a veteran, period. So they rely on donations and fundraisers and
Yes.
so forth. And a quick side issue is that Orville Schaefer, who is also taking this trip, he and I have canisters out in 2 or 3 places around town for collection money, like restaurants and so forth. And it's been amazing. Nickels, dimes, and quarters have added up. And so far, since we started this practice, we've sent probably well over $1,500 down to them, quarters, nickels, and dimes. And once in a while, when I get those canisters, somebody will stuff a $5 bill in there. Once there was a $20 bill in there, and that's pretty amazing. So
Yes.
and by the way, if anybody wants to, again, if they would like to help underwrite the cost of this honor flight for these old geezers, we're getting out of here pretty fast, folks. I'd be very happy to put them in touch with the right people to send a little check in honor of somebody. And by the way, speaking of being an honor, so if you'll recall, at the World War II Memorial, they gather around for pictures and so forth, and then they'll read out names of people who have been turned in, who want to be remembered there. And I had a classmate, George Rhodes, who was
He
killed.
was one of my very best friends at that time.
Is that right? Yeah.
I had a first cousin killed in the war. I had an uncle that was killed in the war. I had my best friend at that time, who was George Rhodes, killed.
Interesting, yeah.
And
I had his
really
name read
hits
off.
home, and I can remember during the war, I think it was once a week they would publish the casualty, the dead, and there were names. Oh, I guess it was from Illinois. I don't really remember. Do you, Bill?
What was
it
yesterday?
just Illinois veterans? And there were hundreds of them in the names in the paper every week.
Yes, yeah.
Every week. And now, you know, I don't want to belittle the war over in Afghanistan or Iraq, because those soldiers got it hard.
Oh,
they
boy.
don't wear any uniforms. They don't know who. They have to be so careful who they even shoot at.
That's the problem. We
Or
don't know
watch.
the enemy.
You don't
Yeah.
know your enemy at all. And how do you defeat a guerrilla war? I don't know if it ever can be done.
Well, one of the real tragedies of this war, these wars, those who are so seriously maimed when they come back, and part of that reason is because of the advances in medicine and so forth. We save more than we did, and so there it goes without saying. Those we save come home grievously injured. Time has run out on us, unfortunately. I would pass the mic to Darrell or Tom for one final comment, if you'd like to have one, gentlemen. Then I'm going to close it up here for us.
Well, it's been a pleasure being here, Bill, and seeing you again. You do a great job out here. You and Judy do a great job, and we're proud of you. The trip was magnificent. I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
And the mail call, one of the things we haven't mentioned is a mail call.
Thank you for mentioning that.
And that is just overwhelming.
Yeah, I sat there and cried, as a matter of fact, when I opened up that mail bag on the trip home.
I read some of those letters. I mean, a lot of people took a lot of time to do that. I wrote back to all of them.
Yeah, I did too.
It was a moment, and my guardian saw a Klink cry.
Well, Tom, when you and I were students at that technical training center in Sioux Falls, little did we know that we'd be sitting here 60-some years hence. Of course, you came through there a little bit after I'd gone through. And do you have any closing comments at all, sir?
No, I was wondering. I went into after we trained in B-17 to the Flying Fortress. I went into B-29 training too, and took all of that. So that's what took all my time. That's why I never got up. Well, that's another story. But I would just say thank you to everyone who helped with these flights. it's an experience that I'll never forget.
Yeah, that's
And
really
never-
right. Yeah. By the way,
always thank the people
I'd forgotten
who
how
made it
small a
possible.
B-17 is. Going down till this, got smaller than I remembered. Well, a little bit facetious in light of the seriousness of our comments today about that great experience for the honor flight. But author Somerset Maugham, talking about flight, said, if a woman makes up her mind to marry a man, nothing but instant flight can save him. Thank you for Viewpoint.